Hey, I'm J.R. Lay, and I'd like to welcome you back to the Level Up Business Podcast. And today, I want to introduce you to Mark Morris. Mark is the author of the book, The Secure Future Advisor, and I enjoyed this book. It's a book that I wish I would have read 20 years ago. It's a book that would have saved me a lot of pain. It's a book that would have saved me a lot of money as a B2B entrepreneur. But before we get to Mark's book, if you are a B2B entrepreneur, I'm willing to bet that you too have unique wisdom, just like the wisdom that Mark is going to share with us today. That's why I want to invite you. Send me a text right now, 832-240-1922, because I want to teach you. I want to teach you how to elevate your brand's influence so that you can increase your revenue by turning video content, just like the one you're watching right now, into a best-selling book that shares your unique wisdom, that shares your authentic intelligence. Now let's get into the show with Mark. Mark, we're already off to a great start, and just I told Andre, I was like, just hit the record button and let's keep rolling because we are having a good conversation here, and there are things that you're sharing I know that would be helpful for other people, other entrepreneurs to hear on their entrepreneurial journey. Let's just start there with your journey, because I think what you said is you did retirement backwards. You ate your dessert first, and so now you're playing an even bigger game for a longer period of time. Take us back, because what was life like for you before you started your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I appreciate that. As I was sharing with JR, I was a career changer at age 35 in financial services. I'm 33 years in. I'm 69, and I feel like I'm just getting started. But my first career in my 20s was frankly starting to drink casually that then became a problem, you know? And I had an alcohol problem, and I also then got behind driving cars, and they said, well, I think you need to go to jail for a while, you know? And that was a key moment. We talked about this in a strategic coach session just yesterday.
Yeah.
We all have those moments and have more than them that we have to make a pivot. And frankly, I am blessed to be 38 years sober. I would not be here today. I wouldn't have 9 kids. I wouldn't have grandkids, wouldn't have a business. But I'm grateful for that. But those lessons are so important. And I love teaching. I love coaching. I think my unique ability is taking complex things, mainly in the financial realm, and simplifying. I'm a simplifier. I like to simplify, and I like to help educate.
I really appreciate that opening perspective. It connects with me, because that moment for me was October 4th, 2012, when my wife, at the time I was maybe, I don't know, 10 years into my entrepreneurial journey, because I started at 19, 20, and my wife at that time said, nope, it's the family or the business. We had just had our second child. And so that was a wake-up call, because I was struggling with a lot of addictive behaviors. And it's funny, because I changed those addictive behaviors for alcohol myself. And went from one addictive behavior to another. And it wasn't until December 13th, 2023, I was like, nope, my future self is not thanking me, will not thank me for drinking the way that I was drinking. It's interesting too, because I really re-examined. I mean, I went, completely dry, sober myself, and then dabbled a little bit, and I was like, nope, I don't like the way I feel. We actually just got back from 2 weeks in Italy and had a couple of glasses of wine over there. It was good, but it just, I don't know. It's like I'm continuously inching towards this like journey of full sobriety myself. And I'm noticing my behavior. It's like, I remember why I stopped drinking to begin with in the first place. And it's not for me personally, it's not healthy. I'm grateful for I'm not in the patterns I was before, but it's just like having that moment of remembrance now of, one, does it even do 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 any good, if you will. So let's shift the narrative, because you got out of that period of time. I've gotten out of that period of time, but I've had multiple pivots since then myself. What other pivots have you had to make over the last 33 years as an entrepreneur? Because you're like, when you were 35?
I was 35, started from scratch, realized that I needed to spend years building a good foundation. And we know, and you know as an entrepreneur, in some similar coaching programs, that the best investment that we can make is in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I started working on me personally, professionally, spiritually. And then I met my wife, and that was great. I love kids. We adopted from Ethiopia. We have 9 kids. I have a heart for the least of these, which is a ministry. But I look at all of this. Finances is just a vehicle to kind of help people. And that's really why our company, and my new book, The Secure Future Advisor Process, we had our clients name the company. Now, I'm a pretty candid guy, and I got a pet peeve in financial services, and I know this steps on people's toes. I don't like the word wealth. Johnson Wealth Advisors, Johnson Wealth this. I asked our clients, what do you want? And the feedback I got was, we want a more secure future. So that is our process. We want people to have a more secure future, personally, professionally, financially, and spiritually. And we just happen to do it in the financial realm. Because everybody, you could be in your 20s, you're dealing with money. You could be in your 90s, you're dealing with money.
And I think that's more important now, because there's so much uncertainty that people are feeling in the present moment. But it almost seems like since 2020, like there was a shift at that moment in time. You had the COVID experience, and then if I think about the business world, 2 years later, 3 years later, you had the introduction of AI. AI has now continued to accelerate, so there's uncertainty there. There's uncertainty at a global level. You mentioned the word wealth versus security. Perhaps security is also something that brings certainty, but you're looking, there's a financial aspect, there's a personal aspect. You also mentioned something that I think is extremely important, though, that has become even more prevalent on this podcast. There's a spiritual aspect. Where does that spiritual aspect, where does that faith aspect come into play in your own life as an entrepreneur?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is the whole core. I had very good parents. My wife, parents divorced when she's young, dad alcoholic, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, when she first met me, she's like, oh no, not another one of these alcoholic guys. But she had never seen permanent sobriety, which she has now. But through my sobriety, I realized that a higher power was God, which for me is Jesus Christ. And then as a student, I did not realize how much of God's word talks about money and possessions. There is more about money and possessions, 16 of the 38 parables, 3,000 verses, than any other topic. Heaven and hell, communion, second coming. It's all about, God knew we were going to be at this level financially. And so that is our principles of leadership, relationship. We're only interested in forever, long-term, multi-generational relationships, and stewardship. So when you look at this as a stewardship, my role, even as a fiduciary advisor, is to help people be good stewards of what they have to the level that they want to have it. And that's different for everyone. So that's what drives me.
Leadership, relationship,
and stewardship.
Stewardship. Those 3 different areas.
Those 3 things, they all connect.
They do. And it's something that I've been thinking a lot about. When I started my entrepreneurial journey, I was focused only on the financial aspect. Made a lot of money. Lost a lot of money too. Was not wise. Did not have the stewardship principle guiding me. And I think, if I think about your book, there's a quote here, Proverbs 16:9. We have it's called a DAC board in our kitchen. And a DAC board, essentially, it pulls in all of our calendars, because my wife, with 4 kids, not 9, 4, so it's a little half of what you have.
That's a lot.
But 4, we outgrew the whiteboard marker calendar very quickly as they became more involved in school and orchestra and their activities. So I started looking for, there's got to be a better way, and I found this DAC board, and because it pulls in all the Google calendars, so it's simplified, and it literally was you talk about being a simplifier. It literally took her what was hours of work, and we've compressed that down now just to a minuscule amount of time. But along the bottom of our DAC board, we have a Bible verse that pulls in daily. And it's the same verse here, comes from your book, which is, you open up in chapter 1, says, the mind of man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. Why did you open up your book with that verse? Because it's you open up with the perils of mountain climbing, and I think about climbing a mountain is such a. I did not know too how much money and finances, even when you think about the parables, was the topic of that. But also, if we think about like the idea of mountains, climbing mountains, it's a big part of the allegorical and the narrative within the Bible itself. But why this verse? The mind of man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. What does that mean to you?
Thanks for asking. I love Proverbs because it's so practical. Whether you're into a personal relationship with the Lord or not, it's just so practical. It speaks to all kinds of things. Now, a lot of people have this immature thought that I'll just trust God. However, God gave us a sound mind. So the mind of man plans his way. It's okay to plan, but we've got to hold things with an open hand, and we got to allow him to pivot us where he wants us to. I might grab my book and give you another verse or two.
Please.
Another one was, and I use this as an example. It's another proverb. Let's see if I can find it. Proverbs 22:3. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Now, I relate that to my 20, 30-something kids. So if you're driving down the road and you see a pothole, you don't go, pothole, I'm going to drive right into it. A sound mind says, let's drive around it.
Yes.
So planning is fine. God gave us a phenomenal mind. He wants us to plan. He wants us to dream, but he does want us to do it under his direction, and there is a lot of good, solid direction of how to do that. So that is just such a it's actually, I have a right fit client card that we have our first step called the candid conversation to see if we're a good fit. Not everybody's a good fit for us. And that card has that verse. And it has 8 mindsets of the people we work with. And then that verse. And I show it to people and they go, well, they select themselves in or select themselves out. And that's fine. Because it is a culture. It is a cultural fit.
I did not have this in my previous business. It's interesting. I'm doing the math. About 4 months in since launching Level Up Business, because I spent 23 years in financial services with banks and credit unions. And it was our time together in Elevated that I was getting called out, and I don't like this was last year. This was 2024. I did not like the way it felt. But it's interesting because you mentioned strategic coach earlier. The idea, the plan for Level Up Business came to me in strategic coach in June of 2022. 2021 or June of 2022. I actually have the document, the paper. It's written down.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't have the courage to almost leave behind
So,
everything that I had built in my previous business. I mean, 2 best-selling books, top 5% global podcast, a lot of quote unquote brand equity. And it's like I had reached this pinnacle of the mountain. Um, you know, revenue, we were doing fantastic. But then something happened. Slowly, things were getting taken away.
mm,
And all I can think of is just God was just trying to get my attention, saying, I need you to move. I'm calling you to deeper waters. And I fought that voice, that feeling. But then God starts speaking to you through other people. And I was probably trying to ignore that too long. So it's interesting your point about the mind and planning, but at the same time, we have to be prudent. And it comes back to those 3 areas: leadership, relationship, and stewardship.
but that
And
was hard. That had to be hard for you, and most people, normal, wouldn't do it. But you know what? There's another area in Psalms: God's ways aren't our ways, His thoughts aren't our thoughts. You
mhm,
know, I had no idea that life could be so joyful. You know, I have 155 free days a year.
mm,
Entrepreneurs love to work, and many are workaholics, trading one addiction for another.
fair point.
Mark stops drinking. Mark
Yep.
becomes a workaholic.
Same pattern for me.
And I need to put guardrails around me because I'm the first one to go off.
But I think, what really woke me up on that point of about workaholism was what Joe Polish and Dr. Gabor Mate were talking
Okay.
about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't ask why the addiction, because you're talking about alcoholism. I'm talking about other addictions I was struggling with, and then we got the workaholism. It's like they call it the noble addiction,
Yeah. There
but
you
it's
go.
like, but it's and what I learned from the conversation with Joe and Dr. Gabor Mate was, don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's JR, and I just want to take a minute to thank you for tuning in to learn, to level up together with Mark and the unique wisdom he's sharing with us today. And if you're a B2B entrepreneur, I'm willing to bet that you too have unique wisdom that can help elevate your brand's influence so that you can increase your revenue. That's why I want to invite you to send me a text right now. Text me 832-240-1922 because I want to teach you. I want to teach you how to capture, how to publish, how to amplify your unique wisdom, how to amplify your authentic intelligence by turning video content just like the one you're watching right now into a best-selling book in 90 days. Now let's get back to the conversation with Mark. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you're watching or listening to this and you are struggling with an addiction, and it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be porn, it could
Mm-hmm.
be work.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I'm not going to judge you. In fact, I would say reach out to me because I've been there. Mark's been there. Like, you
Absolutely.
don't have to do this alone. And that comes back to those 3 things I wrote down: leadership, relationship, and stewardship. This is the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I want to segue here from your entrepreneurial journey and some of the perspective that you've already shared, because the entrepreneurial journey can feel like climbing a mountain, just
Mm-hmm.
like planning
Mm-hmm.
for a financial future can feel like climbing a mountain. And as a fellow author, I'm always curious what motivates other authors to invest the time, the energy, the attention to write books. I've done 2, working on a third, now helping other entrepreneurs do the exact same thing with
Mm-hmm.
a bit of a different approach, taking a video first approach to writing a book. But why'd you do it? Why did you invest your time, your energy, your attention to write The Secure Future Advisor?
Well, I appreciate you asking because we care. We may not be the smartest, but we care. And the mountain is a great analogy to me that's simple for life. When you're climbing the mountain, 20s. If you started at 1920, I wasn't even thinking about doing anything productive. I was at Ohio State trying to get $50 on the weekend to go drink. You're starting a business.
Hey,
Anyway,
I only did it to impress a girl. So there was a girl.
so
And it
20,
was,
yeah,
yeah.
when you're going up the mountain, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s, because people are living longer, it's hard to have fun, pay the bills, go on vacation, raise kids, save for college. That is a heavy lift. However, many people think I'm at the top. I'm done. I've arrived. I've never climbed a huge mountain, but all the deaths, 80% of the deaths and accidents are going down the mountain. The risks are totally different, especially in financial services. The strategies are different, the solutions are different, and even your mindset and your behavior has to change. So we don't manage money, we do, but I tell people my job is to help manage your behavior and your expectations, because when you're in this fragile risk zone heading down, you didn't have Social Security, Medicare, and all the fatal tax traps till you start heading down the mountain.
That's super fascinating. And I was curious why the descent is oftentimes more dangerous than the climb. And it's that 80% of death, 80% of that fatalities are on the descent. Now,
Tons of bodies are frozen on mountains going down.
well, that gets into another perspective of yours, which is you believe in data. And there's two data points here. You say most people spend more time planning a 2-week vacation
Mm-hmm.
rather than planning and thinking about the next 20 to 30 years. And then that directly connects back to another point you share. Less than 50% of Americans feel ready for
Yeah.
retirement. I think those are two intersections. Why do you think this is? Why do people they planned for today? And once again, I'm speaking here. This was me. Like, I made a lot of money as an entrepreneur, did not plan appropriately, kind of blew it all
Very
stupidly.
normal. Very normal.
But why, from your experience over the last 35 years,
Mhm.
33 years, why do people put off the next 20 to 30 years for today?
There's a couple things. And here's my major discovery, the short answer that may not seem adequate. There's 8,760 hours in 1 year. 8,760. And I ask people, Mr. 58-year-old, 52-year-old, 68-year-old, 74-year-old, how much time out of that 8,760 hours do you sit down and plan the next 20 plus years? And most people look at me and go, yeah, I spend more time planning a vacation, maybe 5. So the relationship is important, because most financial advisors only care enough to help people accumulate money and get paid off of it. They forget about this side. CPAs don't understand the distribution decades. They
The descent.
don't get that side. They don't care relationally about things they don't get paid on. If you optimize someone's Social Security benefits and coach them on that, they could get hundreds of thousands of dollars of additional lifetime income. Most portfolio managers who just manage money, which we do too, they don't care, JR, and they don't care, most importantly, about saving taxes. And the two biggest costs going down the mountain are taxes and healthcare. And one more point, because of that stewardship mentality that I have, that God owns it all, I was the student that learned 35 years ago that pay Caesar what you owe him, which is your taxes, but not a dime more.
Mm-hmm.
It's good stewardship. It's a stewardship mindset that drives me to help people save tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of unnecessary taxes.
Well, you're talking to a guy right here who early entrepreneur, didn't know about any of this, had a quote unquote CPA who was doing a side hustle, worked in corporate, referred to me by a family member, ended up, and this was, oh my gosh, maybe like I switched to another more legit CPA firm. But I'll never forget the day my door got knocked on at the office and a CPA, not CPA, but IRS agent walks in
Auditor guy.
with a badge and basically says, you owe us like $150,000, $180,000. And I was like, oh, help. And fortunately I was able to literally just write them a check that day and make them go away. I called up my CPA.
Well, that's pretty impressive.
Well, but it was not a good feeling. Like it was, and at that point though, that like, it's for me, it's been a wake up, and it's like, when you wake up in the morning and you're like kind of groggy, it's kind of like how I feel like this has been for me. I just want to wake up, hit the ground running, and normally like how I jump out of bed, like get up, go work out, do the thing. But what you're talking about, I'm curious because there's a psychological aspect here because you're talking about the CPA side. You said you wrote the book because you care. And I think about my experience in financial services with my old business. I wrote about this in my first book, Banking on Digital Growth. I call it the banker's brain. And the banker's brain is a very smart brain. It's analytical. It can think about facts and logic, numbers. You are moving from, and it's essentially, it's like left brain thinking. But the reason you said you wanted to write the book is because you care. And that's more of the emotive, the intuitions, the feelings. That's what I call in Banking on Digital Growth. That's the consumer's brain. Like that's how people think about money and finance. It's an emotional thing. It's not just dollars and cents. Am I off with my thinking here when you're comparing these two experiences of like the CPAs who do the thing, but then you're looking at this from an emotive lens and helping people?
CPAs are not trained to save taxes over your lifetime, and if you care about kids, grandkids, or nonprofits and you want to leave money to the next generation. They don't think that way. Now maybe God didn't wire their brain. So to do that, two examples. I love teaching even young people. So I go to the University of Dayton here in Dayton, Ohio, and I go down every year and talk to some of the young kids coming out of grad school about fundamental financial planning, okay? They have questions. I love doing that. But here's what I ask them. If we went out on the college campus today and interviewed 1,000 other students in their 20s and said, do you think you'll be financially successful by the time you reach your 60s? How many of them out of 1,000 are going to say, yes, I will? 90, 95%?
I'd say the higher percentage, yeah.
Very high, because they have time,
Right.
which is the greatest financial tool is time, okay? Mm-hmm. Compound interest. Here's the facts. Less than 5% of the people in their 60s are prepared for retirement where they have freedom. That if they, see, to me, money is to buy freedom, return on memories, return on, not just return. Money is a tool, a test, and a testimony. It's in my book to help people get what they want, and they're not prepared. And so we got to catch them at the top of the mountain or getting close so that they have some runway so they can enjoy those decades and there's still time.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, we are not a nation of planners. And it's sad because when I was in my 20s, I met people that made 300,000 a year, which was a lot of money back then, that couldn't save $50 a month. Then I met people making 62,000 a year, saving 1,200 a month. Has nothing to, it's a decision. It didn't
Hey,
make sense. You know, when
Dave
I grew up,
Ramsey.
you had to have money to have a BMW. Now you can just have a lease. And
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting you mentioned that because Dave Ramsey did a study of essentially the millionaire
yeah,
mindset.
yeah,
And what their study found was engineers, and I think a lot of it is just how the engineer mind works, but also teachers. Teachers have a higher propensity compared to, say, a physician, because a physician, yes, they have the higher income,
yes.
but then they also have the debt burden, but then the lifestyle creep, and that lifestyle creep is what got me in my mid 20s. And that's the thing. It's like you make money fast, and you don't have the wisdom, which you mentioned the book of Proverbs. There's also the book of wisdom too. There's a lot of, and King Solomon wrote that. There's a lot of practical perspective in there as well.
Yes.
And it's like, I guess that's where I'm at. It's like, had I known what I known 20 years ago, it's like, wow, where would things be? So now it's like having to like let go of that. Okay, that's just the tuition. It's just price you had to pay to get to where you're at.
Mhm.
You apply this knowledge now. You go forward, and you have the leadership, the relationship, and the stewardship accordingly. One of the other questions I had from your book is, and I think I know now based upon our conversation, but I want to open this up for those watching or listening, because you mentioned beware of the gurus. Who who are the gurus here? The false gurus, maybe the false prophets. If we're looking at this from a biblical standpoint, who
Yeah.
are the gurus that you mentioned in the book that entrepreneurs need to be aware of and avoid in the
Well,
plan?
you're probably going to get me to step on some toes here, but it's good to be my age because in 1973-74, the market went down 26% one year, 16 the next, got cut in half. Guess what people were doing in the 70s, JR? Watching the Brady Bunch. They were not
Mm,
connected to the internet and CNBC and all that. So one of my mindsets is be careful of the 24/7 noise and the fads. People love to go towards fads. I'm not against cryptocurrencies. I'm not against certain things. I own some gold, but unfortunately, and I'll mention a couple gurus. You just mentioned his name.
mm,
Dave Ramsey's model and Clark Howard, the consumer warrior. They're very good people. I wish they would stay on their line. They are
mm,
not licensed advisors. They're not licensed security. And how could I really dig into someone's world in a 3 or 4 or 5 minute phone call and give them
yeah.
advice? His model is blanket stuff. And so you got to be careful of some of the things that they say. But because they're a radio person with the biggest uh, listeners, people take it as the the gospel truth. I love
Mm,
Clark Howard. He's a consumer warrior. He's really, really good, but he doesn't understand the distribution decades and some of the things and how they connect. So we got to be careful. So here's my approach. Every solution has advantages and disadvantages. Hopefully, you can find someone who cares enough that'll explain, look at what you already have, help you understand the advantages and disadvantages, and then here's other things that may have advantages, and how could that improve your world. Our whole goal is to solidify what you have, not replace it. That
mm.
takes some time and education and a relationship. You can't build a relationship. You know, guys in my business that like to brag and go, "Oh, I've got 2,000 clients." Studies show you can't have more than 120 to 150 close relationships.
Ah, yes, that right there. I thought that's where you're going to go with the 120 to 150.
Yeah.
And the relationship, it's those three things: leadership, relationship, and stewardship. The relationship piece of this, it's what I was really focused on in my historical business,
Mhm.
my past business, was trying to bring more relationship to financial services, to banks and to credit unions, but it was just not. It was too much of a wall, too much of a resistance.
Yeah, I could see it. Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
me, the relationship is such a key part of any type of business. That's one of the reasons I love doing the podcast, because I get to meet and talk to so many different people, and
Mhm.
now it's like we're going to take their wisdom, because we're talking about proverbs. So, we're going to take their wisdom
Wisdom.
and unlock that and capture it and share it and amplify it back out into the world to go help others, because yeah, there are personalities that have the mind share, but back to your point, it's only a limited piece. And I think now this is the capability that entrepreneurs have today, that we didn't even have 5, 10, 15 years ago, to be able to share authentic intelligence, not artificial intelligence, but to share authentic
Hmm.
intelligence
Hmm.
that comes from lived, learned, shared experience. And if you've been doing something for at least a decade, you're 3 decades plus in. I mean, you've got a lot of wisdom and a lot of perspective, which is why I'm glad you packaged all of this up into your book. As we start to wrap up here, what, because you've touched on this a couple times, the mind. And I believe that the mind is the most important technology that every single one of us has to learn to master in this age of AI. Everyone's so focused on the AI right now. It's great. It's another tool. It's another capability. But AI is only going to be as good as how we perceive. And it's like, if we're not mastering our own mind, someone else is going to be mastering it for us. And that's going to show up in how we perceive the future.
Hmm.
Do we look at the future as it is going to be something that's bigger, that's going to be better? It's going to be full of opportunity, hope, abundance. Or when we look out at the future, it's uncertain, it's scary, it's less than what it is today. What are you most hopeful for? Just yourself, looking out from your lens, thinking about your entrepreneurial journey of where you've been, but now leap ahead and 10, 20 years from now, what are you hopeful? What are you excited for yourself?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been said many times, but I have worked on my health, lost about 45 pounds, and got a coach to help me with that because why do all professional athletes, which are great, have coaches?
Want to be even better.
NHL, golf. I mean, so I have coaches in different areas. I never had a health coach, a fitness. I'm not trying to get a six pack, but I do want longevity. Now
I
my
will say this publicly on air. I am trying to get a six pack for no
one,
other
I
reason than
know, it's
I
fine.
just want to.
It's fine. If it comes, great, but I want to live a long time.
I do too.
Now, a couple of other things, but that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm glad I'm wired this way. I it's mastery. You are getting more masterful at what you do when you do it. And that's your unique ability. And so that is exciting to me. And then leadership is training other people that can have that mastery.
Hmm.
And here's where it is in the practical terms of why I also put the book together, and that is when people get into their 50s, they've either done their investments on their own, have an advisor, or a mixture of both. They are still worried. They want to know who can take me across the finish line, which is get to the top of the mountain, but don't leave me there unattended and say, fine, the guide is taking a helicopter who got you up, has done it a bunch of times, knows how to do it, and leaves, and you get down on your own. And that is what people are really worried about. Studies show they're worried about outliving their money. They're worried about taxes. They're worried about health care. That uncertainty needs to be turned into certainty. And without a thinking and a strategic process, a planning process, that won't happen. And that's what we have built, is the process to help people get to that, to the level that they want to. Because we want them to get down. If your mindset is just getting to the top and not down safely, then you just think it'll be fine. It's not.
Yes.
We want you to get down safely. And that's the side of the mountain that very few people have the expertise with.
Well, to your point, 80% of those deaths from a mountain climbing standpoint happen on the descent. And that is where that's your unique wisdom. And your unique wisdom, as I define this with what we're doing here at Level Up Business, your unique wisdom equals your unique perspective, which is your lived, your learned, your shared experience, and you've got a ton of it, that is then further multiplied by your unique methods, your models, your frameworks, your systems, your processes, which is the whole thing of what you've got in this book right here. And so thank you for sharing that unique wisdom, both today, but also in the book. And if someone is watching, they're listening, they want to get a copy of the Secure Future Advisor, where can they go to pick up that copy?
Well, they can reach out to me, okay, at securefutureadvisor.com. That's our website. It's obviously on Amazon now, but I would love to send you a free copy and either go to my website or my email, which is mark@securefutureadvisor.com, SECURE, future, FUTUREADVISOR. We want to get this into your hands because we are in the wisdom business.
Yes, and there's no better time than now, for sure.
Yeah, and I really have been looking forward to joining you and getting to know you better too, and I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you. So for those watching and listening, connect with Mark, give Mark a call, get his book. You don't have to climb this mountain alone. And we've talked about climbing a lot of different types of mountains here in our conversation today. So Mark, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, buddy.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, JR. God bless. Appreciate it.
God bless you. I want to thank you for tuning in once again to learn, to grow, to level up together with Mark and the unique wisdom he has shared with us. And if you are a B2B entrepreneur who's ready to elevate your brand's influence so that you can increase your revenue, send me a text right now, 832-240-1922, because I want to teach you how to turn video content like the one that you've been watching today into a best-selling book in just 90 days.